When your doctor tells you that the studies on cholesterol-lowering drugs show that they reduce rates of heart attacks and strokes, there's important details you need to know. Let's look at statins first. Statins lower LDL by inhibiting the production of cholesterol in the liver. One clinical trial used to tout the benefits of statins, the ASCOT-LLA trial, found that the difference in cardiovascular events between the control group and the group that took the statins was an absolute risk reduction of 1.1%. This is not statistically significant. However, they compared that 1.1% to the amount of people who did have an adverse event in the control group, which was 3%. This is relative risk, and relative risk is not clinically relevant. But when you assess risk in this way, in this study, it gives you a 36% reduced risk, which gives the clinical trial a much better headline. This is misleading, and this tactic is used in all the major statin trials. In fact, a review paper looked at 21 of these clinical trials and found that by using relative risk, they all overstated the risk reduction of statins when compared to the absolute risk. You can easily see this discrepancy in the graph from the study. Now let's look at PCSK9 inhibitors. These work differently than statins. They work at the level of the LDL receptors on the liver. One major trial of these drugs, called the Fourier trial, found that 11.9% of people in the control group had a cardiovascular event, heart attack or stroke, and that only 9.7% of people in the treatment group had an event. That's a 2.2% absolute risk reduction, which is again not statistically significant. However, using relative risk, the study claimed a 15 to 20% reduction in risk, the same misleading tactics as the statin trials. Now, a review paper of all the trials on PCSK9 inhibitors found that none of the trials created a statistically significant decrease in the risk of major cardiovascular events. And they found that use of one particular PCSK9 inhibitor, Repatha, increased risk of all-cause mortality. This misleading tactic is not new. A recent review paper illustrated that pharmaceutical company-funded clinical trials have been reporting results as relative risk rather than absolute risk to make it look better for at least the last 40 years. Now, we can say that these drugs lower risk very slightly, but they come with a whole host of side effects that I have discussed in other posts. However, is a 2% or less risk reduction really the best treatment Western medicine has to offer? The underlying issue is that our healthcare system has been corrupted by industry. Due to the fact that these drugs generate a lot of revenue, the industry invests much more time and money in treatments that give them a greater return on their investment, rather than investigating actual causes of heart disease and researching treatments that are far more effective than a 2% risk reduction.